Hi preschool, happy Thursday. I hope you guys have been having a great week. Today we have a brand new story and the title is called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. The author is Judy Barrett. She wrote the words, and the illustrator is Ron Barrett. He drew the pictures. We're going to turn our page and we're going to keep turning until we find the words. Here the words are. So, when we read our words, we always use our finger to point to each word. And we start on the left and we move to the right, going from top to bottom. So let's get started. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. So they're eating pancakes for breakfast. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. What just landed on Henry? It looks like a pancake landed on him. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. So they're not too worried about the pancake. It must have just been a mistake. Grandpa must have thrown the pancake by accident. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay a tiny town of Choose and Swallow. I wonder what life is like at Choose and Swallow. In the most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there was no food stores in the town of Choose and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Choose and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. So why does this town not have any grocery stores? Because all of their food comes from the sky. Yeah, it rains food. I wonder what kind of food it rains. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain, it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. So take a look at that weather. Have you ever seen it rain soup and juice? Has it ever snowed mashed potatoes and green peas? Has the wind ever blown hamburgers out of the sky? This is a strange place. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. So a prediction is a guess. They're going to guess what food is going to come out of the sky. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, And there usually were. The people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. So what is everyone in the town doing? They're collecting food from the sky. Yep, they're eating the food from the sky. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jellies sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. So what time of day is this right now? It's the morning time. It's breakfast. I see a lot of breakfast foods. For lunch one day, frankfurters, or hot dogs, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. What time of day do you think this weather is occurring? Do you think this is morning, afternoon, or nighttime? I think it's afternoon. I think it's lunchtime. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Choose and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. What does a sanitation department do? What do you think it does? I think its job is to clean up all the trash found on the ground and in the streets. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all of the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and the turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. What does the sanitation department do with all the leftover food? Yeah, they feed it to the animals. They feed it to the dogs and cats on the land and the animals in the ocean. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worst. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day, there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. So what's the problem in Choose and Swallow? Yeah, the weather is producing food that's disgusting. The people don't like the food, the taste of the food. How do you think the people in the town are feeling right now? They're probably pretty upset and mad. They don't like the taste of the food that the weather is making. I wonder how they're going to solve this problem. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Frightened means scared. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some without seeds and some with. There was white bread and rye and a whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards, picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. So the problem here is that the food is too big and there's too much of it. They can't eat all of this. First, the food was disgusting. The people in the town didn't like the taste of it. Now, there's too much of it. The portions are too big. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. Nobody could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. I wonder how they're going to solve this problem. It's raining too much food. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. They still have too much food. What are they going to do with all this food? There was an awful salt and pepper wind, accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. What do you notice right now? What's happening in the town? The weather is making too much food, and the food is damaging the town. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Choose and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. Abandon means everyone is going to leave the town and go somewhere else. So they decided they have to leave the town. I wonder what's going to happen next. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter. They took the absolute necessities with them, and they set sail on their rafts for a new land. I wonder where they're going to go. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. So these are the bread houses. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd, or strange, that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky, except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Choose and Swallow to find out what happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. The end. I hope you enjoyed that story, preschool. Tomorrow I will have a brand new book for us, and then I will see you guys back on Monday. Have a great night. See you later.